anytime you start to drift away from purpose, you start to drift into pain. And so having that alignment with your purpose and understanding that and understanding who you are as a human first kind of helps build these other things where it's like, man, I did this in my personal life. Like, basketball is really nothing.
Lead by Example with Bob Myers is presented for the people by Caesars Sportsbook. You bet, you get with Caesars Rewards. Must be 21 or older.
Welcome to Lead by Example. I'm your host, Bob Myers. Today, we have Becky Hammon on. World champion Becky Hammon. Congrats. What did it, buzzer sounds, what's going through your head?
Obviously, a lot of excitement. You know, as a head coach, you're never comfortable, you know, until the buzzer goes off. You always are just dialed in with no let up, you know, mentally. So I don't know, for me, it was exciting. I was happy, but I was really quite relieved too, you know. Just, I don't know, it's been a long time coming for me. So it felt really good, but I would be lying if I didn't just like exhale, like, yeah, okay, it's over. Like, it's over.
What is that your first? I'm sure what was your first? I mean, sure you won before. I don't know what age you were, but I mean, you won.
Yeah, I mean, there's been different championships. This was my first, you know, I played 16 years in the W and got to the finals, I think probably four times. The problem was, Bob, that the other team was better than us.
That is a problem. That's a problem.
You know, the other teams we were facing was, you know, the big three in Houston with the Houston Comets, and then the fourth one actually, you know, pretty banged up. I mean, a lot of this stuff is, and even this year, you know, you got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And I know you know that very well.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you got to be healthy, but yeah, I was just ecstatic. I mean,
were you was it something that was it better than you thought? What you thought? Less than you thought? Like, now you've had a little time after.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I knew how it would feel. I was just kind of,
you guess though, right? You dream of these things.
Yeah. You know, yes and no. Right. Because the things that I think, and this sounds super cliche, but like, you know, I inherited a team with a lot of talent. That had been, you know, close. And I think the thing that I was just most proud of probably was just the way they played as a team, like turning some individuals into a team, a real team. Yeah. And the buy-in factor was really high from the go. And, you know, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, it's a pretty simple philosophy in the sense of, like, for me, if you're open, shoot it. If you're not, pass it. And if you see two on you, definitely pass it. But the buy-in factor, just into each other, into the system, into myself, was something that I felt really, really good about. Yeah.
It's interesting because one team, right, one coach, one group of players gets to finish a season, whatever league you're in, but college, there's a ton of teams, pros, your league. One team doesn't have to look back and say, if I would have done this differently, or if I would have done that differently. When you got to the finals as a player and lost, is this a situation where you're up at 3 a.m, or do you literally do what you just said and like, hey, they were better, I'll get ready for next season? Like, how do you feel the losing as a coach or as a player?
I hate losing. It's very many sleepless nights. You know, we lost game 3, and we didn't just lose. You know, there's a way to lose. The way we lost bothered me. Yeah. You know, granted, they had a night. We played poorly. But, yeah, I was up till 3, up at 6, like a caged animal, just pacing back and forth in my hotel room, trying to figure out what we could do differently, what we could do better. Losing. And, you know, even I think and I will do this, it's going to be wise of me to go back and be like, hey, even though we won, we could still do some things better and still learn. But it is much easier, or you're much more driven after losses than wins. But I think you can't get lulled to sleep by winning. Because there's certainly a stretch in our season, and I know you've had them, many different kinds of stretches within an NBA season of just like we were winning games, but we weren't playing well. And I was like, let's not get it twisted. We're winning. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine, but we're not playing well and we're not playing the right way, and that bothered me.
Yeah.
And so you always go back to the drawing board and try to refigure some things and figure it out.
Yeah.
Go back to the drawing board.
So the hating to lose, Becky, when you were fourth grade, the teacher says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Two questions here. Have you always hated to lose? Were you the kid that in Monopoly and whatever you were playing? And then was it playing? I want to be the best. What age did this kind of sink in for you on the basketball side?
I've been playing basketball ever since I can remember. I mean, they got pictures of me 2-3 years old, with a ball. I always had a ball. My dad played, church league, city league,
right.
All these different ways. And so I've always had a basketball in my hand. I always wanted to be the best, and I think what's kind of cool in the whole thing is just growing up. I grew up in South Dakota. I knew just because I was the best in South Dakota didn't mean anything against a national stage. And I kind of had an early understanding of that. I don't know why. But it was like, I think I'm better than every girl in Wyoming and every girl in Nebraska and every girl in Colorado, but I don't know about New York City and California. And, but I did have a pretty big world perspective on how good I wanted to be. And at the end of the day, I'm 5'6", and this is still a game that gives advantages to the big and strong. And that was never really me. So I had to think about things different. I had to go about it differently.
Right.
To be successful.
Did you have a moment where you came up against some other player that you remember where you thought, okay, like this is a skill I don't, or this person, this is a different level. And did you remember that?
Yeah, there was a couple of different ones. I had a kind of, if you will, like an aha moment in college, where we had played a really high-ranked team, and I had a great game, played against really great players. So I had one in high school, one in college, and then I would say in the pros, where it just kind of clicks, is like, okay, like it went from me, because I was not drafted, first of all, making the team, right? So that was my goal. Like every day I was like, no, not today. You're not cutting me today.
Right.
And that turned into, a 16-year career. But then it became more about like, not only do I just want to be here, like I want to be an all-star. I want to win like at the highest level. And so I think for me, I was a gym rat. I've always been a gym rat, and so I just played a lot, and I got better every year and smarter every year. And then as you know, your body starts to go like this, but your mind is still sharp as ever.
Right.
So,
right.
It's like, dang, why couldn't I have this mind when I had that, 25-year-old body? But I guess that's the way it goes for everybody.
Oh yeah, we all get there. So was there a coach, like when you mentioned, your body starts telling you how old you are, and then was coaching kind of like, I guess I'll coach, or was there a coach that came along and you admired or learned from, you said, that's what I'm doing when I'm done playing? Was that always sitting in there?
I mean, I think I've always kind of been a coach on the floor because I had to think the game, right? Because I'm not as big as everybody. I'm not as fast as everybody. So, when other people are playing checkers, I'm playing chess. And that's how I kind of went about it. But as the body starts to tell you, you got to go into a different direction, I started doing some TV stuff. And I remember I was doing I think a Pac-12 women's game. And I was sitting next to the play-by-play guy, and he was like, man, the losing coach walks out, right, with the head down, like all mad. And he's like, yeah, that's why TV's the greatest. Like, you never have to leave the gym a loser. And that was my other aha moment right then. It was like, yeah, it's not for me. I'd rather be in the fight because I can't ever leave the gym a winner. Like, I don't want to be in between just talking about the fight. I want to be in the fight. And so that was, a moment that happened later on, obviously, in my career that I was like, okay, I want to be a coach. And I guess the greater question in just life is just, what do you want your life to be about? And for me, I want it to have impact. I want to lead an impactful life and impact people around me, impact the next generation, and everything that entails. And so I decided, coaches and players, the people that I was around and in the fight impacted me more than like a TV personality.
Sure. Yeah. And then as far as when you were playing, obviously you were the best player in high school. and it sounds like college and often on your WNBA team. But as far as the leadership part, when somebody says Becky is a leader because, what's the because? Why? What's the why of it?
I would say probably my whys are just, I would say I'm a uniter. I'm somebody who, I was the last person on the bench. I know how that feels. I was the person that wasn't picked, all the way to being the chosen one, in a sense. And so I feel like I have a lot of empathy for the in-between, and really being able to kind of pick up on different things. Now, basketball unites us all, but, I would say this to like DeMar DeRozan, who's one of my favorite guys that I got to coach. It's kind of like, what does this big black guy from Compton, straight guy, have in common with this little white South Dakota girl? And it's like, it starts with basketball, but then you start sitting down and talking and get to knowing people, and you're like, wow, we actually have a lot more in common than what meets the eye. And I think that ability to connect on a deeper level than just the physical level, but on a relatability level, on a moral level, bigger picture stuff than just basketball. And really, that's what I find, that's kind of what I treasure the most, is just the relationships that are built along the way. Like, what else even really matters, in a sense, like, other than the people that you're journeying with?
Yeah. And so people say that, right? You've heard that. But they don't do it, right? So people say, I've connected with my team. And you're kind of like, it doesn't look like that. They're not playing that way. Not what they're saying about you, but we all want to do that. Or many of us are smart enough to say, I got to connect with the people that I'm attempting to lead. Mm-hmm. So you went to an organization in San Antonio where their coach, Popovich, is his mantra too. Like, I want to talk about something besides basketball. He kind of epitomizes that. He exudes that. So, but there's the how, right? So there's the, I want to do this, but what your how is kind of like, I want to connect with DeMar DeRozan. He's completely different than me, completely different background. How do you do that, is my point. Like, how does one connect? You said it's just through basketball, but it's not that simple.
No, I mean, it's time, it's listening, it's sitting down and having conversations. Pop, his thing was dinners. Yeah.
Could you not go to the dinners, by the way? Like, what if you said, I'm not going to dinner? What would he do?
I better have a damn good reason, Bob.
But, Becky, what if you'd been for 3 nights in a row? Like, what if it was the 4th night? Do you have to go to the 4th night in a row? Because can you say, I'm tired? I'm tired. I went through. I want to hear this. I'm very curious.
So there's his kind of rule of thumb is, 6 people. But, a lot of times we have 2-3 games in a row that you're trying to prepare for. So it's kind of like you're trying to get in and out of dinner as quick as possible. Yeah. And sometimes those dinners can turn into 3, 4, 5-hour events. And you're like, damn, I got to finish up that scouting report. But, his dinners were fun, and that's, again, it's 80% of the time we're not even talking about basketball.
Sure.
And I think that's where, again, you build these meaningful relationships. And so when he would take the team out, or you're on the bus, or you're sitting around in the gym, whatever, like, a player peeks their head into your office and you sit down and talk. And that's really where I really feel like leadership of a small team, right? Because you have different kinds of leaders. You got people that are leading thousands. You have people that are leading. But even if you are leading thousands, right, you still have that inner circle, so to speak, of your top 20 and the trickle-down effect of that leadership. But to me, if I was going to speak or I was going to do this, like, what's my audience? Like, who are they? How can I connect with them in a different way, in an authentic way? Because I think one thing I know about players in general, male, female, they'll sniff out a fraud real quick if you don't know what you're talking about. Or if you're kind of faking the funk, like if they don't really feel like you're authentically interested, those conversations are not going to last very long. Or have any kind of depth to them. And I do think that in order to lead people, like I want to know how to motivate you. I want to know your background, because your background gives me indicators of how to push you best. Because, some people learn visually. Some people, you got to sit them down and show them tape. Some people have to walk through it. So there's different kinds of learners. And so for me as a leader, I want to be able to push the right buttons at the appropriate time to motivate them. not only to be great basketball players, but like great humans. And I think if there's one thing across the NBA and the WNBA, there's really a lot of great human beings on the floor.
What made you, so you could have quit, you know, you love basketball, you got that from, you can't remember when that started, but that was always there in your life. You were good, you weren't like you said, gifted athletically or physically like a lot of other women were, or girls. But something shaped you, like something gave you this perseverance, something gave you this love for the game, love for connecting with people. When you look back on your life and you've done a lot, accomplished a lot, been tested, are there moments, or was there a time where was there a story, or is there a pivotal moment where you go, you know what, this taught me this part, or my dad, or my mom, or like my coach, where something shifted in you and you learned a hard lesson, or you had was it losing in the finals? Like I worked with Jerry West for a while, like his championship losses shaped him, maybe not in such a great way, but they shaped him, and he would admit that. But what were your kind of like, you're here now at this point in your life, and you look back and you go, these three things, this one thing changed my course?
So, oh man, so many stories of like unfortunate but fortunate redirects, whether that be an injury, whether that's losing a big game, whatever. I've been through so much hard stuff in the sense of not being picked. I mean, not being drafted, I wanted to play on our Olympic team, that wasn't going to happen. And so some of this stuff, even my coming to terms with like my sexuality, I come from a very conservative background. All that now I can see was necessary to build me to be kind of comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And so when you're hit with an injury, or you're hit with rejection in a way, you can, there's really only two choices. You either stay down or you get back up. But you
say that like it's easy, right? Right? You say like you get back, but I know that, and people watching or listening know, but like a lot of people don't take it like that. Like they don't. You think that's so clear, right? Like I didn't get drafted. Well, I'm going to prove everybody wrong.
Right.
That's not a lot of people don't get drafted and it's over. Or with your sexuality, they never get comfortable, or they don't endure whatever you had to endure. So I'm wondering, like, what in you gave you that, which maybe for you is second nature, or maybe it's not. That diminishes the work you had to put in to get there and overcome this stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't always easy. I can remember so many times growing up, just crying in my car because I didn't know how to relay this information to people that I loved and cared about, or that they would be disappointed. And I think you start to build, I think things were being built in me young, because I can remember I went to a private school growing up, and I think I was in second grade, and I wanted to play on the fourth grade YMCA boys team. And it was like, no, she can't. And my dad was like, just let her come play. One practice with your guys, and after like 20 minutes, they're like, she can stay. And I think for me, I had probably natural leadership skills, but the depths gave me depth. I think it's really hard to get depth without doing a deep dive and into yourself and figuring out, okay, what your true purpose is. And I think anytime you start to drift away from purpose, you start to drift into pain. And so having that alignment with your purpose, and understanding that, and understanding who you are as a human first, kind of helps build these other things where it's like, man, I did this in my personal life. Like basketball is really nothing at this point. This is putting a ball in a hole. This is getting up. This is coming back from an ACL. Like I can do this. This is physical stuff that I can, if I just put in the work, I can do that. The internal stuff was really ground out, and really, it was purified in the fire. I had to go through a lot of fire. And
what was the I don't if in regards to like the hardest thing, I heard something good the other day. I was watching the U.S. Open a little while ago, and I think Darren Cahill said, you don't mature through age, you mature through pain.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you, and I don't know how old you are. I'm 47, but I'm not mature because of how old I am. I don't think you're mature, but when we look back on, like, why do we have maturity? And it seems like you just said what you had to go through personally dwarfs, like, the basketball. Like, basketball's a game, right? We boil it down, it's a game. And now we get so sick in it because I know you were with the Spurs and with the Aces. Like, people want to make it so much more than that, and it is so much more than that, but then it isn't. So it's a hard thing to reconcile in your head. You know, it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a balance. It's what we do, and we're going to work our butts off at it. It's what we love. It's a passion. But it's also, for me, a vehicle of a bigger purpose, you know, which is impact, which is helping other people, which is being a mentor, being a friend. You know, like I said, you know, it can't just be about the money. It just can't. Like, there's more to it. And it's about the journey. And like you said, my maturity rate came because of the hard stuff. And I wouldn't change the hard stuff. And as I get older, when something hard does hit me, I feel like I've developed the ability, and I say developed because it wasn't always there, the ability to sit back and say, hey, wait a minute, okay, I don't understand this purpose or this reason why I'm going through this hard stuff now, but I know I will, because it's worked out like that in every other facet of my life. So, you know, I go back to, I tore my ACL in 2003. That meant I really wasn't eligible to be on that 2004 Olympic team. That knocked me out, and I believe it was in Athens in 2004. Knocked me out of the Athens, came back, did another thing. 2007, I get traded, have a great year. USA Basketball doesn't want me, which was fine, you know. I'm going in another direction, they're going in another direction. So I played for Russia, and the crap that I took for making that decision. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I feel in my heart is best and right for me to do. And, you know, fast forward all these years, I'm sitting on a plane coming back from the London Olympics with Gregg Popovich. I've been in his city for 5-6 years, never met him. And all of a sudden on the way back, and he's like a Soviet studies major from Air Force. So there's like, okay, like it gave us this dialogue and this commonality and this, you know, mutual interest in things that had nothing to do with basketball. And again, you know, I can look on that back on that now and say, oh yeah, I can see where that was necessary. I had to go through that process. And there's been so many things in my life now since then that it's like, oh yeah, you know, I had to go through that because I need it. I need it now. Yeah. So you can pull back those past successes, really.
What was the closest moment in that? Was there, I don't know if there was for you, what was the closest you came in your basketball life? And maybe the ACL as a player, but maybe not that answer, maybe even in coaching where you kind of said, I don't know if I should do this. What was the closest you came to that?
Ooh.
Was it getting, because I know you want to be, I don't know if you still want to be an NBA coach. And that is not an easy road, right? That's not easy. No.
I mean, it's not easy for anyone. Let's get that
but especially, for anybody, right?
Yeah, for anybody.
But to be like the first woman is not, it's much more difficult, I imagine.
Yeah, you know what? I had moments, I mean, I remember a couple times in my hotel room, there was things that happened or things that were so frustrating to me in the moment where it was like, God, like, this just seems impossible. This just seems impossible. Like, what am I doing?
What part? Losing or
no. This is more when I was a coach. Basketball, there was never anything. Basketball.
So as a coach, when you said this is impossible, like what? Just the job? Like I say that too. By the way, I get it, but I want to know what's your impossible, because I've said that myself in my job. You know.
Let's just go back like a few years for me, anyways. Where there was moments where it was just like, I don't know, maybe if I looked different, you know, if I had a 16-year NBA career, how would that change my projection? But it is hard. Like you said, let's just be straight. People are like, oh, there's only 30 jobs. I'm like, no, there's really only 2 or 3 jobs. And within those 2 or 3 jobs, how many people are vying for those jobs? So it's not just about, They're just extremely hard to get, male, female.
But Becky, you're a female, right? Like, let's talk about you. Like,
right.
for you,
Well,
you're so if you were a man sitting here and you're like hard to get, I'd be like, yeah. But you're looking at like a climb that no one else was looking at. You know, so I imagine you're kind of like, yeah, they're hard to get, but I'm vying for something that's never happened.
Right. You know, and I think the thing about it's interesting because, you know, everybody asks me, you know, well, how are the guys with you? How is it with the other coaches and this and that? And it's like, first of all, like they're looking at it from my viewpoint. And I always want to be respectful of the fact that, like, look, this is new for them too. They've never had a woman in their midst. I mean, you know how much time coaches spend together, which is thousands of hours, you know? And so I'm always like, you know, I had one assistant coach that I worked with, which he was an older gentleman. He would open the door for me, you know, and he treated me like a woman first. I had another coach who was like, you know, get in the back of the line, Jack. You're the fifth, sixth assistant. Like, both are true.
Yeah.
Both are true.
What do you like more?
Neither is wrong. I actually appreciated both because they're both right.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
And so I appreciated actually both, but it taught me really, first of all, I want people to be comfortable with me in the room, you know, and I realize at times it might be uncomfortable for them. The amount of times Pop paused at first whenever he would swear like or said a word, I'm like, I'm an adult. Please proceed and quit stopping because now you're making it more awkward for me.
Sure.
Like,
He doesn't swear.
I'm right here, right? You know? Oh, he's way far over that. We're way past that now. But those first couple of coaches meetings, he kind of like, and even the other coaches, they'd be like, oh, and they'd look at me. I'm like, I got it. I'm putting it in context, people, because, you know, there's certain words that I don't really like to use, but if I can go just there for a second, it's like, if I called you a dick, you wouldn't be mad. You'd just be like, you get the connotation. You know, you get what I'm trying to say without being like, oh, she hates men. Like,
right. Yeah. So, but some people watching this might not. That's that's the environment, right? That's also like, you know, you're in that.
It's not for everybody. It's not for every girl. That's for sure.
No. But so coaching men and women. So you did head coach the guys. You have done that in moments. And then you've done, obviously, what you did this last year. Can you boil it down? Like, what is the biggest distinction between coaching, not good or bad, but just different? Is there something or a few things?
First of all, I'll say just X's and O's wise, it's as generic as an X is on a board and an O is on a whiteboard. That's how generic the basketball is.
Yes.
It's literally everything is the same in the sense of like schemes, like offensive concepts. Like those things are all that doesn't matter. Sure. Now, the mind and some of the spirit of athletes, the difference between male and female, there are some differences. I mean, I'm not somebody who's gonna, like, you're wired a little bit differently, but this is where they can be also a great complement to each other in ways, whether that's men coaching women or women coaching men, because of a different perspective, because of a different walk, a different viewpoint, different experiences. You can really bring stuff to the table that I think can highlight maybe some strengths that were there that weren't noticeable before, or vice versa. You can expose some weaknesses maybe that, like, oh, hey, that's not right. Like, let's work on that. And I think, you know, have you ever been on a charter fishing? I love fishing, so I use this example.
Yes, I have.
So if you were to go on a charter and you took your wife and some buddies and they had their wives or girlfriends or whatever, the captain of the boat finds it much easier to coach women than the guys who just want to jump on the reel and manhandle that fish.
Yeah.
You know, the women, they're listening and they're learning, okay, you know, when you have first of all, you always want to keep tension on that pole, right? Yeah. And you never want to have any. So they're actually learning the technique they're listening very intently because they want to do it so well for you, right? Sure. And for themselves. Yes. So I would say that's my example.
That's your big, okay, yeah. That's a good one. And it's all, like, before we had maps in our phones, I always look at the direction thing. Where, like, why can't what is wrong with me that I can't ask for direction? Like what? And my wife will be like, go ask for, ask that person. They look like they know what they're doing. And we have this, I don't know if but I do think that coaching, that makes sense that maybe, I don't know if malleable or attentive or better listeners is the right way to say it. But did you ever have one of the men guys, was there ever a moment where he hit you between the eyes like you don't know because you're not a guy? Like did somebody ever come at you at that level? And if they did, how did you respond? Like I know Pop would never stand for that, but
right.
he's not always sitting there, right? And then you had moments where it was just you.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing, Bob, when people talk about you, you're generally the last to know. So I don't know if they
but they didn't do it to you.
They never said it
like
face.
Okay, right,
they never
right.
What they say behind closed doors. I have no idea. Yeah. I can tell you that I've had really great relationships with a lot of different players, and that example that I just give you is a generalization because there's guys that I coached and I saw in huddles who were absolutely dialed in. You draw a play, they go out there and they execute the crap out of it. And then I've also seen where you draw it and they go 12 feet from where you're like, that's not what I told you to do.
Yeah. We got Klay Thompson on our team, so that's pretty much every huddle.
Well, I just give him the ball and say, as soon as you cross that court, let it fly.
He has strengths and weaknesses.
Like that. So that's a nice luxury to have.
Yeah,
but, it's this year, and I had a couple teams, too, that I played with in the WNBA who were just exceptional off the board, where you could just draw something. And their feel for the game, they knew exactly the timing of it, everything. And that's a skill set in itself. Sure. And my team had it this year. And like I said, I've seen other teams, not just the Spurs, but also obviously in the NBA where it's like, wow, they executed the crap down the stretch, when the pressure's on.
The thing about Caesars Sportsbook, it's not just an app, it's your key to a whole empire. Hotels, casinos, restaurants, shows, Caesars Palace, I'm sure you've heard of it. Every bet you place with Caesars Sportsbook brings you closer to perks only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays at iconic destinations, app bonuses, merch, show tickets, and many more Caesars Rewards perks. So get started today. Register using code OMAHAFULL and then place your first bet up to $1,250. If you win, congrats. If you don't, you'll get your stake back as a bet credit.
One of your players, you can tell me who this is. Guess who said this? This is one of your players. I didn't really ever know what feeling empowered meant until I'd actually been empowered. And that's not a shot at anyone. That's just the reality of having an encouraging coach. She's definitely hard on me, but it's in ways that says, I believe and you can do this. And I feel like I can elevate to the level she wants me to be because now I believe in myself. You know who said that?
I'm going to guess Plum.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's
good. You got why so give me that background of that. You did something to her that mattered, right? You got tapped into something.
Well, first of all, she reminds me a bit of myself with her competitive nature. So there's that. We're both super competitive. I played with a chip on my shoulder a good part of my years. It wasn't until I got older and kind of more settled in my own skin that I played freer. I played happier. If there's one thing I can tell you, I do know any athlete, happy players make better players. Having an environment where players want to show up and work hard. And so, see, I guess it's like fun is like a taboo word in the NBA. Oh, let's just go have fun. And it's like, okay, what do you want to say? Like joy, like how do you want to put it? But what I can tell you is create, and I guess it comes to your definition of fun. For me, competitive. Anything we can keep score is fun. Let's do that. So for me, right? Luckily, I had a squad full of women this year who were ultra competitors and wanted to win. So if I'm talking to you and I'm giving you information that's going to help you win and you're that competitive, you're listening, you're locked in. Yeah. And so for her, Plum she was the number one pick, scored more points than anybody in college basketball history. Women for sure. I'm not sure about men. She might even be up there with the men, just total points scored. So she's just a bucket getter. And, she had a Achilles. She struggled because she was smaller. She's only 5'8". And so adjusting to the league where they're big, everyone's big, fast, and strong and talented. And so her journey, she's had a lot of hard, and I could identify that, and I could relate to that. And so for me, I love her spirit. I love her spirit, like her competitive spirit. She's a no games kind of person. Like she hits you between the eyes. She's like, I remember one day I said something to her in a team meeting, and I could tell she was throwing off a little vibe, and I was like, "What's wrong? What's your problem?"
You say that in front of the team?
No, I had said something in front of the team, and then after when we went
you went to her later. Okay,
I went to her personally, and she said, "Well, I just don't think you were supporting me, and this," and I said, "Listen," I said, it was something that in practice, I said, I'm going to support you, but I'm not going to sit there and stop the whole practice to dissect why you were wrong or right. Like, I also want to get to the next play, but let me tell you why you're right, and let me tell you why your approach was wrong, and kind of go back and forth like that with her. But you can have really frank conversations with her, and she's receptive. And we walked out of there on the same page. But I'm not somebody who, I want to go to you directly. Like if I got something or you got something, I prefer you just come and hit me right between the eyes.
But so I don't know you I know you from afar, but we've never worked together, never been in a huddle. But what you just said to me is, I think, I'm no expert, why you are a great coach is because, one, you told a good player the truth in front of everybody, right? You had the, you had the conviction to do that. A lot of coaches, one, that they won't even do that, right? They don't want to avoid that. Two, most people leave it there. I just told a great player in front of the team, and I did my job. You saw she was pissed, right? You saw that. I don't want to diminish. Like a lot of coaches don't see that. They don't even see when a player is upset or not. You saw it. Then you said, "What am I going to do about it?" So you walked over to her and you said, "What's up?" So she trusts you enough to not go, "Nothing. I'm good." So she tells you what's up, right? Yeah. So you've earned that, right? Already she's kind of like, I trust her. I'll tell her what's up. She just didn't support me. So then the fourth good thing you do is you don't react to that. You don't push back on that and say, listen, you don't double down and say, I'm telling you what you need to do. You weren't doing it. You just said, well, this is what I was trying to do. This is how I'm trying to coach you. This is where it's coming from. So in the course of whatever the time frame of that moment was, you did one thing, you thought it out right way, then you reacted to it, then you adapted to it, then you responded to it, then you were empathetic, and then this player now looks at you like, she did support me, she is supporting me, I trust her enough to talk to her, and now this player's bought in. But do you know how rare that experience is? How many coaches don't even know? So it might be you as an assistant going up to your head coach going, hey, she's pissed off, oh, forget about her, I'm not worried about that. Or what's her problem? I didn't do anything. I told her it was wrong. So there's all these layers of coaching. But my experience with all that is that's that takes energy. That takes awareness. And you only have so much as a head coach. So I think it's fascinating to hear, for me personally, to hear a small experience where then you get the player at the end of the year where you've taken someone with all this talent and now they're yours forever. In a way, right? They're their best versions of themselves, which has to feel, I guess that's why you coach, right? Look what you just did to someone, which is really cool.
I mean, she's a unique individual. She's wired differently, and I enjoy different. I like different. Yeah. I'm different, Yeah. And so for me, the relationship piece. And I think I'll say this too. The one thing I wanted to establish very, very early on when I called all them to just talk to them, pick their brain a little bit. They didn't even know me. I'm still finishing my season with the Spurs. I'm calling them on the road. We're doing, a Zoom or a FaceTime. I flew down Asia Wilson. I flew down Chelsea Gray, to come to dinner with me so we can sit and talk and I can start to get to know you. Because, I watched the WNBA. Of course, I love the WNBA, but I wasn't locked into them as people. And so to me, getting to know them, and you're right, it's time consuming, but it's my labor of love. That's why I'm in it, is to impact these people in a positive way, because they go out and they impact other people. And I feel like, you can't drop a rock into a pond and not just have it like ripple out. So that the closest circle and then on all the way out. But I do think words matter. I think words carry weight, and I think words can impact people either negatively or positively. It's like you said, it's like I'd rather have an ACL than some of the stuff that I had to deal with inside. The ACL was easy, compared to what's going on inside my head and my heart. And so, it's there is, I mean, again, going back to my original point of one thing I wanted to do was create an accountability factor. And how you go about doing that for me is being very clear on what the objective is, right? This is your job. This is what we're doing. The expectation, how you go about doing your job. And it gives kind of a baseline for accountability, because there are times that I would stop the clip and my best player is shooting a terrible shot. Hey, pass the ball. And I'll do it to the next person. Pass the ball. So I think I've been fair on accountability. Now, fair doesn't always mean equal. Meaning Asia Wilson gets to make a few more mistakes than, number 9, 10. Fair isn't equal, but I feel like I'm fair in telling them the truth, whether you're my best player or you're the last player on the bench. I think it translates. And honestly, I think they respect that, the truth.
And I think it's a good way. Some coach told me one time, I'm not going to treat everybody equally, but I will treat you all fairly.
Yes,
that's right. You can't. I mean, especially in the level you're coaching at, and obviously in the NBA as well. Last question: Is the NBA is that? I know you love what you're doing now, or maybe it's just whatever. I don't know. Is that still in the back of your? I know you tried and would like to have, and now you're doing what you're doing. And
I never say never, because I tell you, I came out and last summer, I actually worked with Plum on some of her finishing when I was out here for summer. Out here, I'm in Texas now, but in Vegas for summer league. Never crossed my mind that I would be their coach. Didn't even cross my mind. And then, just as the year progressed, and I just felt like it was time for me to step out and do something different, in a different direction. So I wouldn't say no, I'm never going back to the NBA, and I'm not saying I could be here for the next 15 years. I don't really know. I kind of go where I'm wanted, where the opportunity presents itself. And I knew they were building something special here, and I really wanted to be a part of that. But also, Bob, I just needed, to be quite frank, I needed to reconnect with my family. I needed some family time and some time away. Because when I retired as a player, which was 16 years, 2 days later I was in the gym with the Spurs. And then, how that schedule is, for the next 8 years. And so I've never, in the last, 24 years, I've been in some kind of NBA or WNBA arena, basically almost year round. So there's lots of reasons for the move. It was absolutely one of the best decisions I made. But am I going to stay here for the next 20 years? I don't know. I might. I really love. I love the W. There's some things I want, and there's some. We could talk about moving the needle in the NBA arena, but there's so many other things in the W arena that I want to move. I want it to get better and get it to a standard that it should be at, because these are the greatest players in the world, and they got to go overseas, to make money. And I want to make them more money. I want them to have the best of the best because they've earned it.
Well, it's such an awesome story. I mean, I have 3 daughters, and they've watched me, and for you to break down some of the gender barriers in the NBA, I hope you feel that you have done that. I know so many people feel like you have, and just normalizing women in coaching in the NBA, normalizing women in the locker room. I think you're a huge reason for that, and I just want to say thank you, because I think that's such a big thing that we weren't great at, and now we've with you and some other women that have kind of come along. It's such a good thing to have women around us. Like your fishing examples, we need smarter people. Sometimes it's just like a group of men in a room making a decision is not ideal. And so I thank you. Our league thanks you. And great for you mentioning your family in a very authentic way, because I know what it's like to work in professional sports, and a lot of people say it, but it felt like you really meant like that was an important redirect for you, as far as like that was not getting, you didn't feel great about where that was, and so great for you for saying it, and good luck. You got a great team. Go repeat. Go do it again.
Thank you.